All right, let's get it. What's going on, everyone? This is Physical Education with Coach. I am Coach CC, or Coach Cullen Carroll, as some of you know me. Last time I reported to you on this data, we looked at an entire semester's worth of information on psychological and physical scores. I gave you an idea of what we're doing, so this shouldn't take as long today. Really, what I wanted to do with this presentation was illustrate the effects of what I believe to be a 2-week break plus an introductory 6-week of training back towards another performance profile or performance testing bout. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take all the results from last semester and we're going to continue our longitudinal approach. We're going to look at a month by month average for all of the categories that we've been testing. That's particularly when it comes to the wellness questionnaire. Now, when it comes to the fitness testing itself, we're going to be looking at what seems to be every 6 weeks. Okay, so we kind of had a pre, a mid, and a post test last semester. And then some of the data you're going to see towards the far right side of our illustrations, our graphs, are going to be indicative of the first phase for the spring 2021 semester, or what I'm calling phase 4, because eventually I'm going to try and put all of this data together so I can give us a good picture of how we performed throughout the year from beginning to end. So let's go ahead and start off looking at our wellness data. I hope you guys can see this. I know it's a bit small, but like I mentioned before, I like to give you a good picture of my face to see if I'm smiling or frowning, if I'm sad, if I'm happy. When I pulled this data together and added the other 2 months, which would be January and February, compared to what you looked at last time, I was a little disheartened, not going to lie. So all of our indicators are on the right there. We'll look at each individual one. So the first one you see at the top there is the blue line. And from the beginning, we showed a nice little progression, but then we slowly saw that mood fall till we got to what would be about December, when it spiked up again. And I think that's because kids became a little bit excited about having 2 weeks off, probably getting less work, maybe less stress. You kind of see that trend when you look at the majority of these lines. You could say the same thing about, soreness level. It peaked, right? And if you remember, 1 is really bad, 5 is really good. And I know we have a lot of averages in this particular graph, but you have to remember that that's because we're pooling everybody together in this. 9th through 12th grade, freshman classes, sophomore classes, and upper classes. So you have to expect there to be a little bit of variability because of the ages, I think, and because of the maturity levels too. But the one thing that we can't really control for that I think is pretty consistent when it comes to these students, and I think it has more of an effect on the fitness testing, is levels of hormones, right? Peak velocity, which is height or growth, epiphyseal plate growth or closing, if it be. The level at which we mature, the level at which we face puberty, it's all happening around this same time. Particularly for males. For females, they come into high school kind of hitting the peak of that maturity. And for males, they're starting to go through it. I say attempting to go through. I think everybody has an issue with maturity and puberty, but we're all around the same level, so I think it makes it easier to pool everybody together here. That being said, let's go back to what I was talking about in the chart. Mood is in the blue line, soreness is the green line, energy levels is the red line, which we've seen a consistent decrease throughout the year. Our yellow line is sleep quality. Our blue line is the stress level. And then our last line down there is diet quality, which you'll see some of the fitness results. I'll talk about that a little bit more. I think that's having a major impact on some of our students, just being able to get fed properly. And when I say diet, by the way, I'm referring to quality here, right? A lot of times these surveys will be given to elite level athletes, and it'll be more of a question of did you eat or did you not eat? But my question more caters to the quality of the diet. I think I mentioned this in the last time, but we're looking at processed versus natural foods and what students are getting in their body throughout the day. And particularly when it comes to this chart, I ask them on a daily basis how they ate the day before, because that's going to have an effect on their exercise routines. So, like I mentioned, if we look at mood level, we see kind of a consistent line across the middle, and then it tanks for January, and actually mood tanked again for February. That's the one that I'm worried a little bit most about. I don't know if that has to do with students' psyches based on the media and the news cycle and the fact that we're not really going anywhere, and we might not open up until after summer. That's kind of a bummer. I could understand being underage and having a poor mood because of that. Then we see the same thing with soreness, right? The soreness dropped, and I think the reason we saw soreness drop is because I purposefully made the workouts a little more difficult this semester, being that I got an average score of about a 3 to 4 out of 10 on the intensity scale out of students last semester, so I wanted to make it more difficult. So that's a positive one right there. We don't have to take that as a negative necessarily. I tried to induce that myself. Energy levels being lower because of soreness levels, that could be reflected there. Because we are working out more, that could be reflected in that. Also, we have to subsequently look at the sleep level, right? Sleep came down immensely. It went back up a little bit in January, which is that very last dot, again, just to remind you. But those could all affect each other. I think we have to be cognizant of that all of these can have interchangeable roles in how they affect each other psychologically. That being said, we just mentioned, right, sleep went down, came back up a little bit in January. If we're looking at stress levels, that went down. And when I say went down, remember, again, we're talking about bad. So stress levels got worse in January. They got a little bit better in February. And then the last category there, diet quality, went down a lot. That was the first one of our variables to have a lower than 3 average. So we're dipping into the 2, which, remember, once we get to the 2s, we're starting to talk about bad and getting close to the 1s, which is very bad. So our diet quality got a little bit worse. It didn't really get much better. It's still in the 2s, which means that's probably going to be something that I reflect on a little bit more this semester. We did have a lot of interventions last semester on diet. So we're probably going to need to do a bit more just to get kids educated on that stuff, and then also just making sure it's available. I think that's probably the biggest issue in our district, is making sure that stuff's available. So that's, yeah, in a nutshell, that's how the picture's looking for Phase 4. Hopefully it improves from Phase 5 and in Phase 6, and we can finish off the year strong. But who knows? You know, I can't control their emotions. We'll see what happens. Let's take a look at the physical side. So after I did the number analysis for the wellness questionnaire, once I looked at the fitness testing numbers, it became evident that some of this could have had a massive effect on our wellness numbers. And I only say that in association, right? I understand that I'm not doing investigative studies. And again, I understand that I'm polling teenagers, and a lot of them have an issue not just with honesty in their reporting, but also just because they're not that knowledgeable on this topic, right? They're still learning about their bodies. They're still learning about their psyche. They're still getting comfortable with this stuff. So take it with a grain of salt. I don't know how real this is, but it looks like I reported a massive growth spurt over the winter break and over the first 2 months of the spring semester. If that is true, that's a big reason why a lot of those wellness numbers probably that got worse, right? When you have growth spurts, you're probably not sleeping as well. Your energy levels are different because your body's repairing itself over and over again from the growth spurt you've had. Your stress levels will go down, but you're not really stressing at that time while you're going through puberty, unless you're constantly thinking about relationships and some of the other topics surrounding you other than your physical appearance. That brings itself some stress, but somehow stress went down, or stress went up, right? It got a little bit better. Mood got worse. A lot of these other things got worse. I think that might have had to do with us being in a growth spurt. That being said, we did report another weight loss, right? So we had a weight loss In phase 2, right there in the second mark there, a little bit of weight gain in phase 3, but then we lost more weight in phase 4. So I think that's positive. But again, like I said, that could be due to the fact that the diet is getting worse. So keep that in mind. Because our height went up and our weight went down, obviously that's going to affect our average and the BMI positively. You can take that, again, with a grain of salt. Those numbers both going in opposite directions are helpful. But we can also just maybe accept it blindly and say that it's a positive thing that our BMIs are going down. Again, we have to reflect on nutrition here and diet. Our numbers for the push-up went down. This is one thing that kind of bummed me out a little bit. I thought we were doing really well up through phase 3, where we're showing a nice linear increase. And now it's turning into an ugly triangle, and our numbers are starting to get worse. Not as bad as they could be. Obviously, I realize that like I said, there is going to be a detriment coming off of a 2-week break and a 6-week reintroductory period, right? You also have to control for the fact that this is a second semester, which means I have some new kids in this semester that are not going to be reflected in the initial data. Okay, so keep that in mind. There are quite a few limitations to this. As I mentioned before, these are kids and kids reporting. So, just kind of smile about it and accept it as it is. Get that out of there. Modified pull-ups did go down only slightly. I'm happy that they didn't go down to the normal level or the level 2, phase 2 levels. Not much else to report there. This test, flexed arm hang, did go up. I'm happy with that. So again, we did show an increase somewhere. I would put push-ups and modified pull-ups more closer, not more, but closer to the upper body strength ability, especially in this population. I would put flexed arm hang still in the muscular endurance category. So it looks like our muscular strength got a little bit lower, but this is showing that we might still have a positive increase through phase 4 for muscular endurance, which could be beneficial. Sit and reach, so we're looking at flexibility now. It looks like our flexibility did get quite a bit worse, but again, it didn't dip below the phase 2 levels, so we still haven't lost the majority of our gains. I think we're just looking at, again, a decrement due to that short off period during the winter break. Here's our trunk lift, which I've already talked to you about this before. It's a mix between torso strength and torso flexibility when it comes to my opinion. This one got quite a bit worse. Okay, and I want you to think back to what I said a couple slides ago about there being a possible learning curve, right? And some reporter, some intra recorder error, some within record error. This looks really good, the mile run, but I want you to reflect on the numbers on the y-axis and realize that this is probably the most difficult result to stomach. And I think this truly has to do with the quarantine. Again, I'm calling out associations here. I don't have investigative studies to prove this, but when I look at a lot of factors decreasing, particularly aerobic abilities, that kind of has to do with the inability to get out and move around. And I didn't even make this chart correctly because you can see my dot is just about to shoot off that chart there. Our mile times have gotten worse every single phase. Over that 2-week break and 6 weeks reintroductory period, they got even worse. That's one thing that I don't know what to do about. This is a test that I was very positive about, the mile walk, because we were showing a nice linear decrease through the phases. But again, once we put them through phase 4 testing, that aerobic ability got tremendously worse as well. And the third aerobic test, if kids chose to partake in it, this was the one that I usually have, I don't know, not necessarily the most passion for, but I can get more kids to do the pacer. Usually I can get kids excited about the pacer. And remember, this is a modified pacer, so it's a 20-meter course with a 12-minute clock, so it's like a modified Cooper's test. I call it a modified pacer. It got worse as well. So I am really starting to worry as a PE teacher, and not only as a PE teacher, but as a community member and just as a person. It seems like no matter what the intervention is on my side, the more students hear about us not going back to school, that seems to have a negative impact, not only psychologically, but physically. We've seen a pretty big decrease here in our numbers. And I don't know if anybody else is taking any kind of data like this, but I'm starting to worry. So, parents, students, physical education friends, or gangs, whatever you want to call yourself, make sure you stay positive. Keep looking at the good parts of life. Keep reflecting on what you can do to get better. And keep progressing, all right? If you need to get outside and go for a walk, a run, you need to go in the garage or the living room, do some push-ups and sit-ups, do it. Do something to take your mind off of the situation that we're in, because it will get better. It's going to get better. And I look forward to seeing you not only in sports, but also back in school again. Thank you, guys. This is Physical Education with Coach. I am Coach CC. And as always, I hope you have an amazing day.